listeners, it's Jana. Welcome back to Grief Out Loud. The first night Cassie came to Dougy Center, it was just weeks after her dad had died. She was there to join one of our peer grief support groups for young adults. But as she sat in the parking lot, she wasn't sure if she could even make it inside. But when she finally did walk through the door, what she found was something she couldn't have anticipated: understanding, laughter, and friendships that would become a lasting part of her life. In today's episode, Cassie shares how her relationship with grief has evolved, what it means to stay connected to her dad, and how the friends she made through grief continue to shape her world. She also talks about what it's like to be back at Dougy Center, this time as a volunteer, supporting kids who are also grieving for a parent or a primary caregiver. Okay, here's our conversation. Cassie, welcome to Grief Out Loud.
Thank you for having me.
Something tells me when we first met, when you first came to Dougy Center to join a young adult group, you did not imagine that one day you'd be on a podcast talking about your grief.
No, I wasn't even sure I was going to come into the building the first time. So I don't think that this is where I would have seen this ending up.
Well, we're going to talk more about that for sure. And we first met because you did come in the building. You joined one of our young adult groups at Dougy Center after your dad died. And I know we're going to talk about him and that grief. But I also wanted to just acknowledge you've had many, many other losses in the time since we met. And I wondered what you might want to share briefly about your dad, about the other losses you've experienced, like what feels really important to set the context of our conversation.
Yeah. A little bit before my dad died, my grandpa died, and I think that was sort of like my first intro into like what grief was. Then my dad passed, and that was massive in my life. And then since my dad passed, I've lost uncles and I've lost students and I've had a miscarriage. And so like I have experienced, I think, my fair share of loss and grief. And I think getting to experience it in lots of different areas of my life. Grief for my students in like a professional way that was really weird and different. And in the same way, like grieving a miscarriage is more of a grief over a potential than a grief over something that was, or a lot. It's a loss in a different way. Over the years, my relationship to grief has changed a lot. Kind of reminds me of a like Dixie Chick song or something that like just somebody who keeps coming around, and we're not friends, but like also I'm not surprised anymore. Yeah, grief doesn't surprise me anymore.
And when you say it doesn't surprise you, do you mean, and maybe you mean both of these things, but I hear it in two ways. One's there's like, I'm not surprised that people keep dying and that grief keeps happening, or I'm no longer surprised by the ways grief shows up and barges through the door of my life and sits on my couch and eats all my food.
Yeah, both. I think, I mean, sometimes it goes for a different snack that it hadn't previously been stealing. Sometimes it shows up and it's like got a cool new outfit or something. There's also almost a comfort in it. And I guess I brought this up a little bit before our conversation, but I have been really blessed isn't the right word for me, but like that's also kind of what it is, with some really beautiful things that have come to me through grief. So while grief is still painful and it's still hard and it's never like fun, and I don't love that it's eating my snacks, I find myself being grateful for the things that I've learned from it and for the connections that I've made through it. Yeah.
I know your grandfather died and then your dad died, and it was, like you said, just before your 24th birthday. So when your dad died, What did surprise you about grief? I know it's a familiar intruder now, but like what was surprising early on?
I think that the when my grandpa passed, it was after a long battle with cancer, and he was in his 70s, and in a lot of ways he still went too soon, but um it wasn't shocking. My dad died in an accident, and he was, a few months away from retirement and fairly healthy human being who was really excited about things, and who I'd just gotten a text message from, and the day before, and so that was shocking. So I think both like the suddenness of the thing, but then when my grandpa passed, it wasn't as physically painful. I don't know if anyone who hasn't experienced a loss can relate, but I feel like anyone who has can probably also attest to just like there is like a physical pain. And that for me was shocking. I don't think I understood until then just how physically painful grief could be.
Where did you feel it most in your body, that physical pain?
My chest and my heart. I mean, like literally just, yeah, it felt like your heart is breaking. Like there's, the piece of it is gone. Yeah, I mean, I remember like that entire week I had a migraine. Just nothing, felt like nothing in my body was like doing what it was supposed to be doing, which I now, I can rationalize that and say, obviously, like your body's releasing hormones and, stress and all of those things. But what all of that ends up amounting to is something that's actually really very physical, or at least it was for me. And I think I underestimated how long it would take me to feel like I was sort of like had dug myself out of the worst of it. Grief is not a linear process. I don't know if I thought it was going to be linear, but I don't think I thought it was going to be as much of a roller coaster as it was.
Like the endurance event of it, of just how long it can take to start to feel some semblance of, I don't know what.
Yeah. My dad really loved Christmas. And so the first Christmas without him, I was mentally just preparing for it to suck. I was mentally just, this is going to be terrible. This is going to be awful. And Christmas kind of came and went. And then the new year hit, and I realized I was starting a new year, and it was like a calendar year that my dad was never going to see. And that devastated me. Um, and so I think it was, yeah, those moments where I thought one thing was going to be really challenging, and then to have that thing be not so bad, but something that I didn't see coming at all, just absolutely wrecked me. It was hard.
Yeah. There's that unpredictability. You had like braced for
Yeah.
Christmas, and then you'd like let your guard down, and then New Year's comes in and it's like whack. That's not what I was expecting at all.
No, New Year's was rough. That first New Year's was really hard. Yeah.
What else do you think about when you think about how grief was for you in those first like days and weeks and months after your dad died?
I think a lot about the first 48 hours. I think I was living out here. My dad lived in Wisconsin, and so it was trying to get a plane ticket and getting on this plane by myself and flying to Minnesota first so that I could borrow my aunt's car because I wasn't old enough to rent one so that I could drive. I just I it was really aw- I was driving from Minnesota to Wisconsin, and they're right next to each other. And somehow, I mean, in this haze of like having not slept much because my dad like it's been 12 hours since I found out my dad is dead, and I've been on a plane. And when I put the address for my dad's house in, when I left my aunt's house with the car, somehow I don't know what happened. I don't know if I just deleted part of it or, but the address didn't go in correctly. And I was just driving to Wisconsin. And so the map is just leading me to the dead center of the state, which I don't realize until it says you've arrived at your destination. And I'm in the middle of a cornfield. I mean, like, and I realized, like, oh, I am 3.5 hours south of where I need to be. I am like, it has been the longest 24 hours of my life. And just, yeah, I mean, the devastation for me in that moment, realizing, like, oh, I'm going to miss yet another thing and I'm going to be late. And I don't even have words for like what that experience was like. I just remember being in the middle of, like, parked literally on a dirt road between two cornfields on the phone with my husband, then fiance, like, just in tears, just absolutely beside myself. Also, like, really realizing, like, and it's not like I can call my dad to come get me. And it's not, like, I have to figure, like, I have to, no, I actually have to, like, get myself together and I have to drive myself there. I think about that a lot. I think about once I got there, feeling really shocked. Like, in my memory, when I go back and I think about, like, we were staying at my dad's house because it's like a tiny town and there's not really anywhere else to stay. Um, you keep thinking you're going to see him when you come downstairs in the morning. And then, I just remember feeling really, but then so much of it, I feel like I was almost catatonic for. I don't, so much of that first week was a blur, like planning things and trying to figure things out, and then trying to distract myself in the meantime, because then we had, like, everything was done and then we had days still until the funeral and I'm stuck in this tiny town in this house. And my dad died, like, you from the driveway you could see where he died, and so it's just like I don't want to be here. Yeah, which is actually how I found the Dougy Center. I had already exhausted all of the like, I did some retail therapy, I had done shopping, I mean, anything and everything I could to distract myself. And I feel like it was like Thursday or something, and I there's one cafe in town, so I was there using the Wi-Fi because my dad didn't have internet, so I was like really, really stuck. But so I went to this cafe and I'm realizing, like, I'm not gonna be able to distract myself from this forever, and I am gonna have to go back home. And Nick and I had just moved. That's my husband, for context, I guess, for everyone else. Had just moved to Oregon from Michigan 8 months before that. My dad died in June. We had just moved at the end of, like, the last week of October. And so we had people here, but we didn't have a support network of any kind out here. And I just was, like, thinking about it and realizing, like, I can't go back and put all of this on him. And I also can't do this alone. And I was very aware of that. And so I just Googled, like, grief support groups in Portland, Oregon, and really, really lucked out, because, I mean, the Dougy Center was the first thing that came up. I emailed, and I think I emailed you. You were like, oh, yeah, we're on our break, but we were coming back the first Monday in July. That, like, started a countdown for me. Like, if I can once I get back, like, I just have to get through 2 weeks and I'm gonna go to this group. And it gave me, like, it felt like I had a plan. I think the only other, like, really poignant memory, well, I had, like, poignant memories from, having a birthday. Like, my family didn't want me to feel like they had forgotten my birthday, so they got a birthday cake and sang happy birthday to me at my dad's funeral, which was also, like, just, like, really, there's, like, so much there because my dad's funeral was on my birthday, which was sweet. of them, but also really complicated for me. Because it was also Father's Day, and it was just like, I don't know if I could, like,
You're so efficient, Cassie. So efficient. Just pack it all in there
yeah.
in one day.
I just remember just feeling like just having so many complex feelings around all of that. And there's a lot, there are a lot of like weird, tiny good moments in there, but I think for the most part, it was just pretty rotten, hard, and painful. And then I remember coming back and trying to go right back to work because again, I think really was seeking distraction. I was not ready to sit with it. I lasted, I think, maybe 2 hours. At the time, I was working directing like a summer program for kids because it was summer. There were people covering for me and all the things, and so I just kind of went in as an extra body, and I lasted maybe 2 hours, and I was like, yeah, I actually have to go. I can't, like, I'm so overstimulated. I, couldn't stop just like wanting to cry, and I didn't want to cry in front of all these kids and scare them. And I was really lucky in that moment though, because I was definitely out of any like bereavement time. I had used it all, and my boss at the time just like put more in as if it just like existed in the bank. It didn't. And she was like, "Yeah, no, that's okay. I really expecting you to stay." And so I do feel like really grateful, I guess, now that I'm thinking about that, like for those people who were able to give me something that I know a lot of people who are grieving don't have. And I was able to just, yeah, not go back. I think I didn't go back for like another week.
Some unexpected moments of compassion and understanding. So let's talk more about Dougy Center. You email me from this cafe in
Yeah.
Wisconsin, and then you come to your first group. It sounds like you barely got in the room.
I remember sitting in the parking lot, crying in the car, and just trying to figure out like can I do this? Can I go in there and like be in this space? And I did, obviously.
What was it like that first night that you came into the young adult group?
I think I mostly just cried. I don't think I said a lot. I think I just sat there and listened and cried. I think still to this day, like I don't have the easiest time crying, and not a lot of people like crying, but also I recognize it's super cathartic. And I don't think like I just, yeah, I think I just sort of sat there and cried. But I also just really remember, also being able to laugh through my tears a little bit, and having those moments that, and even though I was crying through everything they were saying, a lot of that was because I was identifying with things that people were saying, which was really nice. Because I think, it's like my mom had lost her dad the year prior, but it's different. It just is like it is different. Everyone's grief is unique and everyone's loss is unique, but I do think that there's something very distinct about losing your parents when you're that young. And so I think it was just really nice to hear other people and to see other people who were going through the same things that I was going through, and also people who had been through that and were like a little further down the road, and who were able to sit in this room and not just cry for a whole hour and a half straight. It was nice to see them be like, oh yeah, so that there is going to be a time maybe where it doesn't feel like this.
Just see some possibility for what it could be like in the future.
Yeah.
A lot of folks, when they think about a support group, we'll just stick with that. I was thinking about therapy too, but we'll just stick with support groups and peer support group like we have at Dougy Center. They think about the content of it, right? Like the telling of the story and the expressing of the grief and finding words for things. And then the other part of it that I don't think people think about as much is the process, which is the consistency of it happening. Ours happen every other week. Everyone has a different schedule for theirs, but like the consistency of the actual meetings, the consistency of the people who are in the group with you. What did those two things mean to you over the course of time? Because you were part of group for a couple of years.
Yeah, I think at least a solid a year and a half before COVID hit, and then I was sort of intermittent for a little bit after that. So yeah, like 2 years. It meant a lot. I think being able to say, like, I have this thing that I'm going to do that, yeah, that is every other Monday, and I know every other Monday for, and I sort of made a 3 hour thing out of it. It's the whole drive there, the whole time I'm there, and then the whole drive home, you know. I'm holding space for my grief, and I'm holding space for this thing that is hard and overwhelming and painful and all these things. And my dad didn't have a will. So for an additional, for that whole first year after he died, we were also going through, obscene amounts of paperwork and notifications and like all this stuff that at the age of 24, I had no idea what any of it was or what it meant or what I was supposed to do with any of it. And I was really lucky and had um, my aunt and uncle to support me in that. But it was that whole process was just really overwhelming. And so I knew that I had someplace that I could go where even if they didn't understand, there were a group of people who could listen to me vent about how absolutely ridiculous it was that I thought, whatever, we had to do X, Y, and Z. I distinctly remember venting about having to write thank you cards after the funeral and then finding out that no one else had done that. and then like me being like, well, at least I feel like I'm justified in the fact that this was crazy. And I, not that there's anything wrong with the fact that we did that, or that, and I think it's nice that that was something my family wanted to do. But at the time, I was just so uninterested in thanking anyone for anything. um, and so I think, yeah, knowing that I had this space that was sort of like a container that was scheduled that I was going to go to, I mean, for me, that made grief bearable. It made the whole process of going through it bearable, I think. And, I feel like it sounds dramatic to say it, but I don't know what my grief experience would have been like. And I am like, the idea of going through that grief experience without having had the Dougy Center, like, that's a fear experience. Like, that's a fearful thought for me. As a person who's also struggled with like other mental health struggles, depression and anxiety, things like that, like knowing that I had this container and this place and these people kept me on like the level. I was able to, it's not that I still went to therapy for a little while. And I emailed you and said, hey, I'm new in town. Who are some therapists I could talk to? And you sent me a really nice list of people that you felt like, worked well with grief. And so that gave me, I don't know, I'm rambling, but it gave me a space and a container, and that made it easier to get through the weeks, especially in the harder moments. If I knew like I can, I'm going to cry about this for 10 minutes and then I'm going to put it back in the box, but I'm going to talk about it again next Monday. It made it a lot easier.
Yeah, like it seems like for a lot of folks, even if people aren't coming to like a peer support group, having a dedicated time and space where they know grief is going to have its say, whatever that looks like, can take down some of the fear and worry and pressure that it's just going to come out everywhere all the time, all week long.
Yeah.
If you're like, okay, Tuesday at 6, just hold on, we can put it at Tuesday at 6. Versus like, if I don't have that time and space, then it's just going to be potentially anytime, any day.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it was, having that, like, I know that every other Monday night I can do this thing. And I think also I started so early. Like I think my dad had only been dead for maybe 3 weeks at my first group. And I think I also feel really lucky to have had the advantage of getting to hear all these people talk about what anniversaries and holidays and things. So I had time to think about it and I had time to prepare and I had time to be like, I'm going to take my dad's birthday off and I'm going to take, extra time around certain things that I think will be harder. And that was really helpful because I did for a long time and sometimes still I will, not every year, but I'll be like, oh, actually I'm going to take this day off because sometimes it's harder for me. And then even if it ends up not being a harder day, well, I got a day off. I get to go do whatever I want to do, you know? Um, and so I think it also enabled me to like establish good practice in how I care for myself around grief, which has also made the last several years a lot easier.
Well, let's talk about your favorite thing to talk about. At least I think it's your favorite thing to talk about, which is the friendships that you formed through people you met in the young adult group, the peer support group, and have continued on in those friendships. And I wonder, what did that mean for you in your grief, and how is connecting with folks who have also had, in your case, like a parent die, how is that different than the way you connect with other people?
Yeah. So when I was in that young adult group, there was a bunch of us that were all kind of, I mean, we're already grouped by age, but who were very close in age. And I think we'd all had a parent pass. And we were all just similar enough in a few other ways that I think, and I give a lot of credit to a few of them who were also even more social, much more social than I am, who were like, I'm going to pizza after this. Do you want to come? But we were able to sort of form a group of people, and that group has really lasted. And now they're the people that I attribute, I met all of these people through grief, which is wonderful. And I think for me, it feels very like I had this really massive loss, but I also had this really incredible gain. I love my dad and I miss my dad, but I also don't like at this point, I wouldn't trade that for what not that it's a comparison, but I just feel so lucky and so, again, like blessed for lack of a better word, to have these beautiful relationships because now they're the people that I go to workout classes with, and they're the people that I'm in book club with, and they're the people that I play board games with and go shopping with. And we don't all see each other all the time, but we all have these like people that we still see. And so we're all still interconnected. And it's just really, really special. And because we've already all held space for each other and had space held for us by these people around hard things, when hard things happen, I never feel like I can't talk to them about it. And I think that is one of the things that makes those relationships so different. Because I don't feel like, oh, I don't know how so and so is going to respond if I tell them this really hard thing, or if I talk about my miscarriage, I don't know for sure that so and so is going to be supportive. Like, no, I know that they're going to be supportive, and I know how each one of them will hold space for me because we've done this before and we've done this for each other. And I also feel really confident when somebody calls me and says, hey, do you have the space can you hold space for me today? Because I had a really hard day at work or something, I feel really confident in my ability to hold space for them in a way that will help because I know that I know them and they know me. And I know that if they've picked up the phone and called me, that's what they want, is for me to hold space in the way that I do that. Those connections for me are beyond valuable. Like, I mean, they're beautiful and they're my best friends.
I love that it's like a group of previously vetted support folks. You're like, oh, you already I've field tested this with you before in a like more secure environment. And so now I feel comfortable out in the field with you, sharing something hard and knowing you've got the skills or the capacity to be there with me.
Yeah. You taught us really well. You gave us you laid this groundwork for us. We're like, hey, this is how we do this. And it's really nice because I feel comfortable being like, hey, I need to vent about this and I am looking for advice. Or, hey, I need to talk about this and I don't need advice. I just want you to be really angry with me. Like, I need you to be like, yes, that's ridiculous. And so I don't know. I feel just absolutely joyful when I think about those people in my life that I got to meet through grief. And I know that that's not everyone's experience. I know that that's not necessarily something that everyone will be able to relate to. But I also think that, like, I just hope that other people, if there is somebody out there listening who's like, oh, I don't know if I feel like I could go to a support group, or I don't know if I feel like I could really open up about these things with other people, or I just lost somebody and I don't think that there's anything good that's going to come from this. I guess, like, for me that's just not, for me that wasn't true, and for so many people that I got to watch walk through their grief, that hasn't been true. And like there are really beautiful things that can come from really hard things. And boy, like if watching each other just like get red in the face and cry and get snotty and gross and just really ugly cry over ridiculous, the most, like, and maybe I don't know how to say this, like sometimes the stuff you bring to group is just, in the moment it's what you need to say, but it's also like a little bit ridiculous. And it's like, if I can, these people have watched me get snotty and cry over the fact that my dad's hat smells different now, like, and, which is crazy. But they've sat with me through that, and so I know that these people can walk through with me through anything. And yeah.
Well, and Cassie, now you're one of the folks helping others. I mean, you and your friends have been helping each other this whole time, but you're helping others in a more formal way in your relationship with Dougy Center, which is as a volunteer facilitator with kids between the ages of 6 and 12. And what's that process been like, of like, one, going to the volunteer training where you kind of pull back the curtain and like, oh, that's what they've been doing this whole time, to stepping into this role as someone who's providing support to younger kids who are grieving a death?
Yeah, I think, again, like, I part of it is friendship. One of my friends and I went together to the training, because we both kind of, it's something that both of us had been thinking about and we talked about, and but we're both ready, and so we're going to go do this, even though I think going into it I felt like, oh, this might be kind of hard, going into a different space. I think I left the training feeling like I knew more than I thought I would know, having like been a participant. And then also maybe part of that is just from the work that I've done in other spaces. But reflecting back and all of that, it's like, oh, I totally see how that's what Jana was doing all these years. But also, there's no way that I sound as natural doing that as you did. And so I think there are like moments like that, yeah, where it's like, oh, that is exactly what was happening. And now can I do that for other people? And then I think there was for me definitely a little bit of, originally, like kind of an imposter syndrome, or like I'm not qualified. I think with the group that I was put in is pretty specific. And I think at first I felt really nervous because I felt like I am not qualified for this, like someone else. And then I think once I got in there, I remembered and realized that it's not, well, that is A, not the case, and B, yeah, that I guess, yeah, it's not the case because it's not about what I have or haven't experienced beyond maybe the fact that I can relate.
That the content of your story doesn't have to match the content of the stories of the people you're supporting.
No. Yeah, which I think I mean, I already knew that because my story doesn't match the stories of every other person, but there's a part of me that felt like it was going to need to, and that's just not the case. And it's fun. I mean, working with kids, they're different from young adults for sure in the way that they process things, but not that different. There are so many similarities still, especially when I start to think more broadly in terms of things, especially earlier on in our friendship, that my friends and I would do to support each other, which sometimes is just like a distraction, or I'm going to process this thing through the shopping trip that we're going to go on, or like whatever it is. There's so many different ways to process things. And I just feel really lucky that I get to do that with them. It's been incredibly fulfilling. It's felt very full circle. And it's also been really educational because I also like definitely don't know everything. Never will, but I mean I feel really lucky to get to learn from the other facilitators, because there are facilitators in my group who have been doing this for so long. Um, and every once in a while when something happens or somebody says something and I'm like, I catch myself reacting instead of reflecting. And it's just a joy to like watch them masterfully handle these things and to learn from that.
Without breaking confidentiality, has there been a
Yeah.
moment in a group, the group you joined as a volunteer, has there been a moment that really brought you back to your own grief, maybe in a new way?
Yes, there have been some moments that are like that. I have a kiddo recent-ish who we were playing the M&M game and they were talking about, I don't remember exactly what the question was now, but talking about how afraid they are that they're going to lose somebody else or that that's going to happen again. And that for me is something that was very, very present, especially in the early grief times. And is something that's still present for me now. I mean, if if someone is on the road and they are not getting back to me and they're an hour and a half late, I am like, there's a part of me that is an absolute mess inside. So yeah, there are definitely moments like that when yeah, and I think about how I don't know if I would say that I'm still super afraid that of grief or like that somebody's going to pass, but I definitely remember feeling that in the beginning, just feeling terrified that like, yeah, if I lose one more person, like I don't know if I can handle that. I don't know what's gonna happen. And just feeling like that would be the end of my world. That's not the case. But yeah, there are definitely moments with the kids that bring me back to my own yeah, my own grief. Or when they talk about not being able to remember as much as they wish they could remember, whether that's because they were too young or it's been too long or whatever it is. Yeah, you never know when you're going to lose somebody. You never know when it's going to be like the last voicemail or it's going to be the last time that you get to do this thing with them. And so, yeah, like wishing that you had, yeah, they say things all the time that bring me back to thoughts and feelings that I've had.
Seems too like it brings you back to thoughts and feelings you had in the moment, and then also gives you a moment to reflect on, oh, I actually feel a little differently now. Like, not all the time, but some things have shifted in a way that I maybe couldn't have anticipated early on after your dad died.
Yeah. I don't think I realized it until you said that, which is also just like very Jana thing to do. But yeah, I do think that coming back as a volunteer has put in perspective for me what parts of my grief have changed the most and what parts of my grief are maybe still more or less where they were.
What's a way or ways that you still keep your dad and his memory kind of present in your life?
There are a few. I think one of them is just is like the Dougy, continuing to do work at the Dougy Center and continuing to talk about grief and um being as open as I can about that. And not just in that space, but at work, like wherever I am, I don't, not like talking about my dad all the time everywhere, but like it's something that I definitely don't hide. And I enjoy, I take pleasure in like sharing stories about him, and I take pleasure in talking about him. So I think that would be the first way. My dad really liked Christmas. I said that earlier. And so even when there's only two of us and we're going to be traveling and this, that, and the next thing, and we still go out and cut a tree. And it's always a live one because that was what my dad did. And I always decorate it to the same goofy CD that we used to listen to. So I think that is another way. On his grief anniversary, I always make food that he liked or would make for us. I often have snickerdoodles on his birthday. And then I think I am a cat mom. I have two cats. And my dad definitely was an animal person. We're also like fostering animals sometimes now when there's animals that need a safe place to land, just like trying to do those things. I don't know, things that it feels like my dad would have liked or appreciated. My dad was really, really, really loved the work that he did. And I think that even though he had a pretty good work-life balance and he recognized that work was work and your life outside of work is your life, he was also still like kind of one of those, a really shining example for me of loving the work that you do. So I think I'm really lucky to say that like I've always been able to do work that I love. And even though the work that I do is very different from the work that my dad did, taking pride in the work that I do and putting my community first.
It's interesting that you said the word pride, because as you were talking, I was thinking these all sound like things, the ways that you keep your dad's memory present are all things he would be proud of you for doing, like cutting down that tree every year and listening to. And I never want to say like, I know what your parent would be proud of you for, but that's just what kind of came through. I was like, these are things that I could imagine him as a dad being like, yeah, look at my kid carrying on the tradition.
Yeah. Thank you. That's really sweet. Yeah.
Well, Cassie, thank you. I appreciate you coming on, having this conversation, talking about your dad with me, talking about your time as a participant at a Dougy Center group and now back as a volunteer. Thank you for your service, for being a volunteer facilitator and just giving voice to something that I don't think gets talked about very much, which are the relationships that get forged in grief and the meaning they have in people's lives and how they become not only part of the support of the grief, but maybe I wish this thing didn't have to happen, but because it did, I'm grateful I have these people or these places or these practices in my life now.
Yeah. And thank you for letting me come on and talk about all of these things and inviting me, because I think I was really excited and I got to share this with like those other people that were in the Dougy Center and be like, hey, this is something I'm going to go do. Are you okay with the fact that I really want to talk about how much I love you guys? Yeah, and just share, how special I think the Dougy Center is and all of the people that I've met through there.
Well, thank you again, Cassie, and listeners. I say this to you each and every time, but I am very grateful you're out there listening, tuning in, sharing episodes with people that you think might be interested or helped in some way by the conversations that we're having here, and also for making all the hours of editing worth it. If you want to reach out to me, you can email me at griefoutloud@dougy.org. That's DOUGY.org. That's our main website. And there you'll find all of the information about our local programming, our free downloadable resources, and each and every episode of Grief Out Loud. I'm always excited to share that the podcast is sponsored in part by the Chester Stephan Endowment Fund. Grief Out Loud is a production of Dougy Center, the National Grief Center for Children and Families in Portland, Oregon. Thanks again for listening. We hope you'll join us again next time.